Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Fly to Freedom. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by Sarah Rzemieniak. I had to practice that before we came on the episode, by the way. Sarah is a fully recovered eating disorder recovery coach, certified through the Carolyn Costin Institute, and she's been supporting people around the world in finding freedom since 2018. Before becoming a coach, Sarah worked as an eating disorder dietitian. But after her own lived experience with anorexia and full recovery, she discovered her true passion was in helping others through the coaching and counselling side of the journey. She now lives in Vancouver, Canada, with her husband and two young sons. And today she's here to share her recovery story, her healing journey through spirituality and meditation, her transition from dietitian to coach, and how life after recovery, including marriage and motherhood, has unfolded for her. I know this conversation is going to be full of so much wisdom, hope, and inspiration. So, Sarah, welcome. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes.
To start, could you take us back to the beginning of your journey? When did you first realize you were struggling, and what were those early years like for you?
Yeah, for sure. It was a long time ago. I was young. I was about 12 and really just see how it really is whole biopsychosocial picture, or however you want to try to encompass, just like kind of a perfect storm of everything during that time. So, yeah, there's absolutely something to that list of traits, I think, for who develops an eating disorder and using that as a coping strategy and not something else. Yeah, I really was that very like anxious, perfectionistic, um, people pleasing, needing things, in order, feeling in control, young child. As a parent now, actually, it's been really neat reading parenting books, especially around attachment and stuff, because that has opened my eyes actually to so many things that were going on for me then that I don't think my parents were aware of because they didn't read these parenting books, and that I didn't have a language for. So looking back, I'm like, oh, I understand this whole new piece of it too, which is just like kind of an insecure attachment with my parents. Really seeking like belonging and approval with my peers, and not feeling like I had that at home, even though like home life, was normal and fine. But I think it just, for my temperament, I didn't have the emotional connection and security with my parents that I needed to get through the stresses of adolescence. So I really relied on my peers for my sense of self-worth and for validation, which is very inherently like insecure because they're all 12-year-olds themselves and
Yeah.
very fickle. And so that was extremely stressful. Um, I had a lot of different anxieties and fears as a kid. And for some reason, one of them was being poor. I think I saw like a movie, I think it was like The Little Princess or something, where, someone was begging on the streets. And it just like, I would see these movies and they would like really sink in and impact me. And I'd have this whole new fear. So I was terrified of that. And then my parents at that time started talking about like finances and stuff. And so that was like, I was so scared about that. And then the funny thing with the attachment with my parents, it was, as much as I think because I didn't feel maybe a deep sense of security there, I was very insecurely attached with my mom, and really I couldn't do sleepovers. I needed to be around her all the time. And she went to India for her own meditation ashram trip when at that time when I was 12, and I was just so filled with anxiety and panic about her being gone for the 2 weeks. And so it was when she was gone that the eating disorder set in, and it was like really very acute. Like, I think I dabbled in like some form of like trying to control my food and exercise until that point, and it kind of come and gone. Like, I would almost use it as a coping strategy when things felt bad at school.
Hmm.
But it was while she was away. I was about 12 and a half, and the restriction just got really bad, and it was my way of feeling better. And it was quite explicit. Like, it wasn't like I was like, what's going on with me, and I just mysteriously feel better. It was like, well, I actually think another piece of the puzzle was that, because I've looked back and I'm like, where the heck did I get this idea. Like I was so young, and my mom was not into dieting at all. We didn't have a scale. My mom never talked about her appearance. She doesn't wear makeup, doesn't dye her hair. She's like very, just doesn't really care about that stuff too much. So I was lucky in that sense that it didn't come from within the home. But I remember reading, I think I was just in a doctor's office when I was like, young, 11, 12 years old. And there was a People magazine lying around that had this whole feature on these twin anorexic sisters. And I think something about that article really sunk in for me. And you know how anorexia is often talked about? It's like, oh, so terrible, but also it's like revered in some way. It's like, oh my gosh, they're so
Yes.
disciplined. And oh my God, it's terrible because they're in the hospital, but oh my gosh, they're so disciplined. And so I think that really hit home. So for some reason, when I was struggling with popularity and insecurity at school, I got this idea or this reality sunk in that if I could restrict my food and exercise more than my peers, I felt like I didn't need them anymore. I didn't care if I was popular because now I was inherently better. And I remember being very explicit about that. Like, yes, she was chosen first for such and such, but I bet I ate less than her, or I bet I ran more than her this morning, kind of thing. So, it really was a perfect storm of so many anxieties around with home and my mom leaving, and also feeling very insecure with my self-worth with my peers, and restriction and anorexia, and being this disciplined version of myself just was the silver bullet, and it just made me feel invincible, and it really sunk in very fast.
It feels almost like a superiority, doesn't it, when you're young?
Yeah, a very
It's like,
shallow, tentative one, but it's something you can hold on to. And looking
yeah,
back, I'm like, it was something I could control. Like, how I think of it now is almost like I think every child inherently wants that security and feeling of belonging and unconditional love from their caregivers, like their parents. I think that's where you seek for it first. And when you don't feel it there, I think then I've done a lot of reading around. I don't know if you've ever heard of Gordon Neufeld. He's this wonderful like developmental psychologist. He's local here, but he has an international following. But he has really beautiful work on like parent attachment and stuff like that. So I read it as a mom now, but I really see how it played out for myself as a child. So he says kind of like, if you don't feel that attachment with your caregivers, you'll look for it with your peers, which is very insecure. So it leads to very like unstable sense of self and self-worth, and security in the world. And when you don't get it there, which I obviously didn't get it from there, I really see that I almost became attached to the eating disorder. It's like, okay, I can't rely on you people to make me feel good about myself. And I kind of created this other thing that I could attach to. And I think it's why sometimes you hear people say like their eating disorder is like their best friend, or like it's a love
yeah,
hate relationship, but it almost seems like it's this relationship to them. It's like, yeah. So, and it's something I could control. Like I didn't depend on anyone else's approval or their whims of the day. So I
yeah,
think that's
and
why
it
it
was all
becomes very
yours.
strong, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
all yours as well, and it made you feel
exactly.
special,
Yes, exactly.
and yeah, I hear you so much.
Yeah,
And you mentioned about the article you saw about the anorexic twins, and
yeah.
there is, I think, something in a young girl's mind
Mm,
that kind of glamorizes it, kind of
I know.
makes it
Yeah.
like it's an achievement, like it's special.
Yes, yes, for sure. And I wonder if we would do that if society didn't do that. But think we pick up on, I think we pick up on it, like how these women are viewed by society, and then we
Yeah,
do the
because I
same.
think
Yeah.
deep down we all want to feel special,
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So
So that was the
was
beginning. Mhm.
was there a moment or turning point when you realized you wanted a different life?
So yeah, it's really interesting because it was in so many stages. I remember, you read memoirs sometimes of women with eating disorders, and it's almost like they have this one light bulb moment. Like it's like they're in denial, 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 denial. Oh, light bulb moment. And then they seek treatment. And then it's kind of like this somewhat linear path to recovery from that. And I don't know, I like sharing my story because it doesn't really follow that, but I think it's a lot of people's reality where honestly, I knew I needed help within those first 2 weeks. Like the honeymoon period with it was like a love-hate relationship. So there like it still brought me so much comfort and still was the only thing that made me feel good about myself, really. But at the same time, I was completely miserable and wished I didn't need it. Like I didn't want to wake up and, I was cold and hungry. I didn't want to have to do my whatever exercise routine. Like I dreaded it. But I knew if I didn't do it, I would feel so bad. It wasn't worth putting myself through that. So I had to do it because it was the only thing that kept me from feeling miserable. Same thing with eating. I felt hungry. I didn't not feel hungry, but it was like the anxiety of letting myself eat was so great that it wasn't worth it. So I kind of had all these rules I had to follow, even though I hated them. But it was the lesser of all evils. But I wished I had another way to feel okay. And I was very aware of that within the first week of engaging in the behaviors. So we were staying with family friends while my mom traveled, and they let my parents know that they were really worried about me, that I wasn't, eating enough, and they noticed, they could see I was losing weight. But my parents were coming back within the week, so they, just came back when they were planning on coming back. But I even remember in the ride home from picking my parents up from the airport, like immediately my mom, they were like, "What's wrong? What's going on?" And I remember saying that I need help. I want help. Something like this, something's going on and I want to eat, but I can't. Like, I can't let myself. So they took me to the pediatrician immediately, and he had me admitted to the medical, like the pediatric medical ward of the local hospital immediately. So everything happened very fast, and I like wanted to get better, but the fear was just too strong. And every time I tried to challenge the rule, it was the only thing that made me feel good about myself, I think. So as much as I didn't want to engage in the behaviors, I didn't have any tools to get me through the pain and anxiety and just terror of challenging these rules. So it was really hard. Like I definitely went through treatment programs, and I always like, it's interesting. I think it just plays out so different for everyone. It's like there are so many universal truths with eating disorders that we can all relate to each other with. And then there are our own journeys and our own timelines within everything. Because I remember being in treatment, and most of the women there they didn't want to be there. They hated being there. They hated the doctor. They looked for every way they could sneak things in the program. And I didn't understand. I'm like, don't you guys want to get better? Like, this is miserable. Like, I hate it. And so I always entered treatment with like the most sincerest intentions of like, okay, this is going to help me. This is what's going to make it possible for me to get over this. Um, and I would try so hard, and I would journal hours a day, and I was trying so hard, and I just didn't have anything to replace it with. I was just so scared. Like I could challenge the eating disorder for a little while, but it would get to be too much and I would relapse. So it was a tough, really tough journey for a long time where I wanted to get better and just felt so bad when I would try to challenge it that I would just go back to it, but I wasn't happy doing that. Yeah. hmm
So at some point,
Yes. So that was the early years. Those are the early years of treatment. And then at some point, honestly, I did inpatient treatment and residential treatment when I was still quite young. So I would say between like 12 and 15, I did that. And then after that, I was able to like get discharged at a pretty stable weight and maintain my weight enough that I didn't ever need to be inpatient again. And I just kind of worked with different outpatient therapists. And then it finally, what really kind of got me progressing further was more just motivations, like just really seeing how it was holding me back. Like, and they might seem kind of superficial ones, but like, and again, I think maybe it was also coming from a place of low self-worth still and wanting validation, but like I wanted a boyfriend and I didn't want to be seen as the girl with the eating disorder. So that was like one motivation, at least to keep my weight up, and try to minimize like, over like noticeable behaviors around other people. Going away to university was another motivator. Um, where again, I wanted a fresh start. I wanted to be seen as quote normal. I wanted a boyfriend. I wanted, I didn't want to be seen as like, I found like guys my age really didn't understand it. It really made them very uncomfortable and stuff to, to not to realize that I was like not, just I had all this going on and I really, so that in the early years, I'd say that was a really big motivator for me. But I think because it was more about like how it looked to other people, it got me so far with recovery. It made it so like I normalized a lot of behaviors, but it was like doing the bare minimum to just not draw attention to myself, I would say. And then in university, I had a pretty significant relapse because I just was really uncomfortable with my weight. And at that point, the discomfort with my weight was, I think, more powerful than my desire to be liked by other people. And all my roommates were dieting for the summer, and I knew I shouldn't do. I knew I was different than them. That I couldn't just casually diet like my roommates could. But I was kind of like, well, why not? Like, why do they get to diet so that they're not comfortable in their bodies and they can diet, so why can't I'm fine. I can do it. I'll just lose X amount of weight and I'll feel better and have best of both worlds or whatever. And like I share with clients at the right times now, it really can be very different because just dipping my toes into that idea of losing a little bit of weight or just cutting back a little bit, boom, like it's so all or nothing kind of with it.
Yeah.
So that's where the relapse in my 20s happened, which I wasn't expecting because I'd been so stable in my behaviors for so long. So but again, I didn't need inpatient treatment. I just I kind of built my own outpatient team and got myself back on track. But it was a really good wake up call because I did realize how kind of shallow my recovery had been until that point. And I really started looking deeper at myself, at like this need for the boyfriend, for all these things I was doing, for the sense of like to validate that I was good enough and that I was worthy and all these things, and that nothing was coming from like inside of me at all. And that recovery had never really been an inside thing. It had always been about how it looked to other people.
It's often the
Yeah,
way, isn't it? And when
yeah,
we start to re-nourish enough for our brains to function, you
right,
can get to that point where you can just about maintain it.
right, yes,
But I don't think that's recovered.
right,
That's just treating the
exactly.
symptoms, isn't it?
No, my weight was very good throughout the end of high school and university. It was absolutely within what like the BMI, whatever it should have been, for sure. And that
Mhm.
did bring down the anxiety and like the kind of obsessive tendencies and compulsions. Like
Yeah,
for sure it was, but it wasn't enough to fully like
yeah. It took you
heal
to a
or
better place than when you were in
mm-hmm.
the depths.
For sure,
But
for
it's not
sure.
freedom, is
For
it?
sure. No, exactly, exactly. I
It's
still
still a
had
very
tons
controlled
of rules.
lifestyle.
They were just more
Yeah,
higher quality of life rules, but they were still,
yeah.
it was still very rigid, and my self-worth and self-esteem was still very tentative. Yeah, definitely. So that brought me to, yeah, a new phase of what I was realizing I needed to work on, I guess. Yeah.
Started
hmm
to go inwards, which
Yeah, yes.
is where the true healing happens, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's funny because in my first treatment, when I was like 13, I remember one of the social worker therapists there, she called it my positive self-talk. And so that was the first person who really drew attention to the inner. So I was like familiar with like challenging my thoughts, and trying to talk to myself in a more compassionate way. So I had like that as like an inner, but yeah. So I had like certain tools that I used for sure, but I think it still didn't, it wasn't deep enough to like really, really heal like the real self-worth issues that I think I was battling with. Hmm. Hmm.
So you mentioned that spirituality was a big part of your healing.
Yeah, in different ways. So I grew up like my parents have a meditation practice that that's a huge part of their lives, which was why my mom went to India for those 2 weeks. And it had been around me growing up, so I think I had like an awareness of this like different aspect of life like growing up. So it wasn't foreign, but it had never been something I'd personally adopted. Um, so it was right when I was coming out of that relapse in university and I was graduating, and I changed my mind about what I wanted to do after university. So I really didn't have a plan for what I was going to do after I graduated, that I decided I would go traveling by myself. And I wanted to just do some volunteer work. I'd always felt drawn towards like working with like poverty and traveling. So I was like researching different programs that I could do to go volunteer overseas, and I was just really drawn to India because that's where my mom or my parents used to go. They have an ashram there that they love going to, and they'd taken me when I was 8 years old, and it had had a really big impression. I loved it being there. Um, so when I was 24 and wanting to travel, I decided I would go to India, but it wasn't to start meditating. Like I still really saw the meditation as my parents' thing, and I'm like, it doesn't. I just don't know how to meditate. I don't have the patience for it. That's not my thing. But I do love being in India. I love the culture there. I think I liked how different it was from the Western culture or way of life. I think I did feel some like, I don't know, just freedom there in some
Can you
way.
describe in what way? I haven't been to India,
Uh,
so why is it so different culturally?
well, I think what I love when I think of India, what I love is just the energy and chaos of it. I think I like how it challenges my perfectionism. Like, I just find it just like brings a smile to my face being there, because it's just, I mean, I'm sure I'm making huge generalizations, but in the parts I've traveled to, it's dusty. It's a mix of cars with wagons with cows in the road. There's just something about it that just challenges, I feel like, our Western way of life in a way that I find very refreshing. And I know every culture has their, plus sides and dark sides, of course. So it's not like there's any perfect culture out there by any means. But I just like the differences, and I just like the energy and chaos of it. I think it somehow, I think I want to embrace more of that in my own life. I wish I could because I am so rule bound. So I think
So I
something about it
suppose
is, yeah.
possibly did it feel like a bit of permission to let go of some of the rigidity?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, probably permission because everyone around. Yeah, that makes sense actually. I mean, if I'm someone who cares so much about how I look to other people and what other people are doing and what is okay for me to do, then it makes sense that somewhere like that it would be yeah, permission to not care and to not,
Yeah.
yeah. For some reason, that's my take from India. I'm sure people living there don't always experience it that way, but for some reason for me, that's what I get from being there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it was funny. So I went there to volunteer, and I did. It was a neat, volunteer organization, and I got to stay with homestay and meet other volunteers, and we worked in orphanages and like local hospitals, and it was really neat. But I kept looking for this like aha moment that would somehow heal me, like somehow make me realize that there's like more to life and more to me than my weight and what I look like and like all these things that I still really hadn't recovered past. I got myself to a more stable place for sure out of the relapse, but I still felt like I didn't feel free from it by any means. And I was looking for that. I remember like volunteering with the orphans and the orphan children, and they were like hugging me and looking up at me. And I remember thinking, like, this is when it's supposed to be this magical moment where, like, changed somehow. And it just didn't happen like that. I still felt worried about the food I was eating in India. I didn't have control over the food, and I was worried about what I was eating. Like, so I was still like, oh, like, why am
You
I like, I'm still so not free
you were
from
still
this.
looking outside yourself.
Yeah. I was looking at from these experiences to somehow do it.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. I ended up getting really sick, like really, really sick. And I was in the hospital for a week, and a terrible fever. And so it got really bad. And my mom was really worried about me. So, and I'm like, I'm too weak. I can't do anything. So she was going to fly to meet me, in India, and we were going to fly home together. But I started getting better throughout the week after she'd booked her tickets. I like started recovering, but she was like, "Well, I have my ticket booked." She's like, "Why don't I still come out there? But I'm not going to go all the way to India and not go to the ashram." Um, so she's like, "Why don't you come with me?" And I'm like, "Ugh, I don't know. That wasn't really my plan. I still had all these train trips I wanted to do around the country that I hadn't been able to, that I'd had to cancel. I wanted to do those, but something in me was just like, yeah, let's, yeah, I'll give that a try." And she's like, "Well, if you're going to be in the ashram, like, it's not open to just anyone. Like, you'll have to start meditating while you're there." So that was how I started. That was, and I really do feel like everything kind of happens for a reason. And so it was just so many serendipitous events. Even that, like, the head doctor of the hospital I had ended up in, which was ended up being a very good hospital, did the same meditation that my parents do. And so they were in contact with him, and that was totally chance. So yeah, it was just neat. So that's where I started to meditate. And even that was a little bit fraught. It was like, I'm like, okay, I found this new practice and this is going to replace the eating disorder. But I came at it with this, like, desperation, like, let me meditate enough and good enough that it takes all my anxieties away, and that I can just eat freely finally and gain the weight I need to gain, and just, and not feel so fraught about it. But it
So
doesn't
it
work
was
that
still about
fast.
doing.
Yeah, just so desperate for something to make it less painful. Yeah, but it was the first, like, bit of, I mean, so it was a mix of, like, finding the meditation, and then, as cliche as it sounds, like, I know people are like, oh, self-help section of the bookstore or whatever, it has like a cliche, but no, really, like, reading the right self-help books, the ones that really spoke to me, and I think gave me permission and just really reinforced this idea of myself as, or just really focus on a different way of viewing our existence, I guess. Like, if you read a lot of, like, the Eastern philosophy books and, like, the Buddhist books, like, like the ones that, like, I loved Tara Brach, Pema Chodron, and, like, Kristen Neff's self-compassion book, books that talked about, like, the heart, or, like, love versus fear, like, kind of those themes I found very soothing and very healing. And they did give me a set of, like, tools and lenses that could help me to, like, start to try to let go, or to challenge these things that I had in place to feel good about myself, and to kind of even view those, like, Tara Brach is really good at viewing things as, like, from the lens of, like, shame, or fear. And so I think even just starting to think about, like, in my life, what is coming from love and what is coming from fear, and all of these things are coming from fear. And so how do I, so it's just like, yeah, like, spirituality and just self-help books, and not eating disorder based self-help books. I wasn't
Yes.
reading eat recovery, like, eating disorder recovery books. They were exactly what I needed. And so that was, and then I started seeing therapists who weren't specialized in eating disorders, but I specifically sought them out, saying, like, I need help with my perfectionism, or I need help with my self-criticism. And I was kind of targeting these things that I felt like were so key to maintaining the eating disorder. but it was not necessarily like just like the eating disorder getting focused on as the eating disorder. Like I didn't really want, yeah, I wasn't focusing on challenging the behaviors themselves yet, but like what was maintaining this for me. So that was really helpful. Yeah, so kind of all of that. Yeah,
Because all of
yeah,
those things really are the eating disorder, the perfectionism, the people pleasing,
yeah,
all of those things are symptoms, aren't they? They're symptoms of a
yeah,
deeper insecurity, of a not feeling good enough, of a thinking
totally.
everybody else is better than you,
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
and
Yeah,
that you're supposed to feel good, right?
right, right.
But in actual
Yeah,
fact, we're allowed to feel all the feelings,
right.
and
Yes, I think I've always struggled with that. Yeah, yep.
we're allowed to
Mm-hmm.
have days where we feel rubbish, and that's okay,
Totally. Right, right. Yes.
and we don't have to fix it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think almost when at your core you just feel so not good enough, then those days, it's not like a surface, it's not like a deep down, I feel good enough, but I'm having a really hard day and that's okay. It's like you just don't feel right at all. It's almost like you can't really even name it. So I think that's where it's so hard. Like it's the healing
Oh,
has
I
to be on
hear you.
such like a deep level. And that
Yeah,
takes time. That's really,
it does.
it does. It's more than one book. And I think that's what's tricky in the work that I do now because you just really see what a deep journey it's going to be for people. It's not a quick fix of working on some behaviors and gaining the weight. It's like this is going to be a journey. Like this is some deep, there's some deeper stuff that's going to need to be
Yeah,
healed. Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm.
When I'm working with my clients, it's yes, obviously we work on the food and the
Yeah, of
movement
course. Yes, of
because it
course.
has to be worked on,
Of course.
but it's
Of
actually
course.
such a small part of the healing.
Yeah, yes, yes. It's like the top layer, and it has to be worked on at the same time. You can't just do the deep stuff and
Yes,
not do the
no,
behaviors. And it
absolutely,
actually
and
feels very, and I actually find like challenging the behaviors can be like a gateway to the deeper work because it calls on you to like try to connect to that like deeper place. I with clients I often call it like wise mind. And I think they know what that is. Like they can sense there is this part of them that knows that they are more than their weight and that they are more than these behaviors. Hmm.
it's the part of them that actually says they want to get better. It's the part
Yes,
of them that
exactly.
reaches out for help.
100%. Exactly.
That's the part that is self-love.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. It is in there. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
there. Hmm.
even
It's
if
often,
I mean, I thought that I had no self-love whatsoever.
yeah,
But
yeah.
the fact that I even reached out for help and that
Yes.
I wanted to get better,
Yeah,
that was coming
exactly.
from love.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I remember like when, in the early days of the eating disorder, when I would be, exercising when I had no energy and just really physically suffering, I would be crying. And it was because I hated hurting myself like that. Like there was a part of
Yes.
me that really grieved for what I was doing to myself. Like it was so it's in there. It's just often not
Yeah,
it's not strong enough necessarily to win out, but it's in there and it hurts when you're hurting yourself. Yeah.
absolutely, and when you
Yeah.
see it's in there, when you
Yeah.
see that tiny spark, the
Yeah.
more of your energy and your attention you give it, the bigger you
Exact
can grow it.
exactly. Yes, which is why I think challenging the behaviors is so important and just going at a pace that feels safe, but it strengthens that part. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
It sounds like you went through the kind of the fine line of nourishing enough that
Hmm.
you were actually able to do the deep work, because when you're in
Right.
a state of complete survival
That's
response,
right. Yes.
your brain's not even capable of doing the deeper stuff, is it?
Yeah,
Because it's
100%.
just in this response.
Yes, exactly. The anxiety is so high and
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And in treatment in those early days, like I'll put this out there just because I know For clients, sometimes it's helpful to hear. I'm not sure your own beliefs around this, but I know something that I was very against myself in the beginning, but learned to be open to and then was very grateful for was the help of like medications in the beginning. Like my mom, obviously, along with her meditation, like they're very holistic. We don't have a lot of Western medicine in our home, didn't have a lot growing up. And so she was nervous about me going on these pretty heavy duty, like antipsychotic meds when I was like 12. But when you're so malnourished and your brain is so freaked out and rigid and just terrified, but you need to gain weight and you need to nourish your brain, then that was actually so helpful because without being nourished in order to calm my brain, the medications were able to help me calm down enough that I could gain the weight I needed so that my biology itself could like be enough.
Absolutely.
And some
I
people
think
stay on
there's
them, which is totally fine. I didn't need them after restoring my weight. I felt okay without them, but they were a big help at that in those early days. Yeah.
yeah, I went through a
Hmm.
similar thing,
Yeah.
and if you can do something that makes it even just a tiny bit
Exactly.
easier,
Yes. Exactly.
then do it because
Exactly.
recovery is
Exactly.
it's tough.
Yes.
It's a really tough journey,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
anything you can do to make it easier,
Yes.
do it.
Totally. Exactly. 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think I was just
absolutely.
worried it would like make it feel like I wasn't doing, like I wasn't the one who like could take credit for my recovery, or it would make me like a zombie and like make me completely, and it didn't at all. Like if you find the right ones, and I felt like myself just a little bit less anxious and a little bit more able to take on challenges.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
when I was put on, SSRIs,
Mhm.
when I
Mhm.
first started recovery,
Mhm.
my brain was just not there. I couldn't
Yeah.
make a simple decision, I couldn't do
Yes.
anything,
Yes,
and I was
exactly.
terrified of going on them. It felt
Yeah,
to me like a
yeah,
failure,
yeah.
actually.
I know. I think especially to if we're so, the way the eating disorder works, I could see how it could.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
felt like I was admitting that I was substandard almost,
Sure. Yeah, 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 yeah.
and that
Yeah.
I didn't have it all together when I'd
Right.
spent my entire life trying to prove I did have everything together.
Right, right. Yes.
And it was just a tool, and it
Yes,
just
yes.
helped me through
Yeah.
those beginning times,
Yeah, yeah.
and then I realized that actually pretty much all of my symptoms were
Mhm, mhm.
related to starvation.
Yeah, yes, so many of them ease up. Yes, it is
Yeah,
amazing. Biology is really amazing, all the things that your
yeah.
body and brain is
Even
doing. Yeah.
things that felt so unrelated, like I used to count
Yes.
everything. I would
Yes,
go into
yes.
a room and I'd be counting the leaves on the plants, the pens in the
Yeah.
pots.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
counted all my steps and stuff,
Yeah.
and I didn't remember a time that I didn't do that. I from a tiny,
Wow.
tiny child, I was counting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I no longer count.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it is incredible. Yeah. I know I've had clients who feel like these are parts of my personality. This is who I am. And then they're nourished for the first time and their brain isn't in survival and restriction and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm actually not this like high strung like like, a lot of their personality changes for in ways that they appreciate, but it's also a bit like jarring because they're like, "Oh, I thought that was
Yeah,
just who I was." Yeah.
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 It's really interesting to see how we uncover ourselves because I don't believe we
Mhm.
become a different person. There's this whole,
Mhm.
quite frankly, terrifying
Hmm.
narrative
Hmm.
that you don't know who your identity is without the eating disorder.
Right, right. And that is how people sometimes feel. Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
And yet, yeah, I'm a different version of me now, but the
Mhm.
things that made me me,
Mhm.
the compassion, the gentleness, the
Mhm.
kindness, the things I liked about myself,
Yes, yes.
they're all still there, but they're
Yes,
free to be there fully.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, it's so true. I
And so I
know.
think this "you're going to be a completely different person" narrative that is
Mhm.
put out there
Mhm.
really scares people.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're right. I know it makes it feel like this huge jump into some huge abyss where you're starting from this blank slate of a person or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
but
I
you're
agree.
actually just coming back to your authentic
Yeah,
self, to
for
who you
sure.
really are.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. I know. I know. It's true.
So we kind of veered off track again.
Oh, no, no. I love these
Um,
organic
I'm quite
conversations.
interested, were there any
Mhm.
particular meditations or spiritual healing that really clicked for you during that time?
Hmm. Well, I mean, the one that my parents do, the one that I did when I was at the ashram, that's the only type of meditation I've ever really done. Other than I'll do like guided meditations sometimes, especially if I'm having trouble, like because theirs is just a very self-guided one. It's not like guided at all. So sometimes I'll put on like a Tara Brach guided meditation or Eckhart Tolle or something else, which any of them are beautiful. But I've always just really resonated with things that like focus on the idea of like the heart as kind of being the center of who we are, or the heart as the seat of like our soul or love, or anything to do with like love versus fear. All of those have I've always really resonated with and found very healing. Where meditation is not just like a tool. Like I know meditation has become quite mainstream, and it's often just used as a tool of like quieting our mind or like increasing our focus or like efficiency. Like it's gone quite mainstream in like the tech world and everything. But for me, I really only find it healing in the sense of connecting with like who I feel like I really am. So like going inwards and focusing on the one my parents do is it's called it used to be called Sahaj Marg, which is like the Sanskrit name for it, but now they call it heartfulness, and it's like been a little bit
Okay.
more modernized or a bit more accessible. But it's really just focusing. You just settle down within yourself and just meditate. You just put your attention on this feeling of like light and love in your heart, and you just continue to bring your focus there. When it, of course, thoughts come and you get distracted, but you just continually bring your attention to your heart center. And I just find that very healing because I'm so up here in my head and I can give my thoughts such supremacy. So it's very healing to be like, wait, that's not who I am. Like there's all this stuff going on up here, but so yeah, so that's the only meditation, like formal meditation I've ever done. But yeah, I've always found that concept to be very helpful for me. Hmm.
I think that's really beautiful actually, because
Hmm.
I do believe that if you strip away everything,
Hmm.
it's love.
Yeah, I know. I know. I always come back. That is
Yeah.
when I'm in my best
Mm.
moments, and feel like I'm seeing the world the most clearly. That's always what it seems like. It's like love and fear. Yeah, and the fear kind of
Yes.
clouds it. And we have fears for so many reasons. And um, but yes, I think the truth is always from love and is
The
love.
truth is the
Yeah.
truth is always love. I think that's
Yeah.
what we all strive for. We all
I
strive to love and be loved.
I know, exactly. And you see, I really see that on the surface. Everything else we do, like wanting to have the fanciest cars and the nicest clothes and the thinnest, most toned bodies, it all is just trying to win love or
Love.
acceptance or respect or whatever else
Yeah.
we think it's going to come in the form of. But yeah, 100%.
But when
Hmm.
you peel back the layers
Hmm.
of any of these negative thoughts, any of these coping mechanisms that can be so
Right.
destructive,
Right.
when you peel back all of them, it
Yeah.
always comes down to, I just want to feel loved.
Yes, it's so, so true. It's so true. Yeah,
It's
I
like
know. So many
the
times.
fear of weight gain.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes.
When you start to unpick it, I'm
Yes.
scared of weight gain because, well,
Yeah.
I don't want people to think badly of me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Why?
Hmm.
Because then I would feel not accepted.
Hmm. Hmm.
What's under there? Well, then I'd be all on
Hmm.
my own.
Right,
And what's
right.
under that? And
Yeah.
then I wouldn't be loved.
Yeah, I know exactly. I wouldn't feel loved. Yeah, exactly. Lovable. No, it's so true.
And at our core,
Yeah.
we are pure love. We were born pure love. You have
Mhm.
children.
Mhm, mhm. I
They
know,
came
it's
out into this
amazing.
world as pure love.
Yeah, totally. And you really see how everything, like, I have an 8-month-old and a 3.5-year-old, and you really start to see by the time they're like 3.5 and they start getting older, you really start to see how their personalities and their little strategies here, it is really all, yeah, it is about trying to just make sure they're loved and to feel loved and to have
Yeah.
the reassurance that they're loved. Yeah, and it's quite heartbreaking in some ways. It's just so tender and sweet and huge responsibility as a parent to give them that, and not yeah, yeah.
But also, do you notice how they want to just give love?
Yes, that too, 100%. Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Which is
Yeah,
so
he's so,
beautiful, isn't
yeah, the 3.5, he's so tender, he's so sweet. Like, yeah, 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 no, for sure.
it? Okay, so back to where back
Yeah,
to the
yeah, we could touch
conversation.
on, I know in the intro you touched on how like marriage and becoming a mom had also been part of the journey. Also, yeah, switching from dietitian to coach. We could touch on anything
Yes,
in the
so
last
you
bit we
became a
have, but
dietitian.
yes, yes. So when I graduated university, didn't know what I was doing. I'd wanted to be a doctor because it was prestigious and I wanted the validation of that. And
Yeah,
realized that luckily Wise Mind stepped in, and I think I just knew myself and knew that my perfectionism and anxiety would make life a living hell if I was a doctor. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. It would just take over everything. So I think I knew I couldn't pursue that. It just wasn't a
I
good
just
fit
want
for
to
me.
interject. I love the fact that you said your wise mind came in.
Yeah, yeah, yes, that's exactly how it felt. Like every time I would go to
Yeah,
like register to study for the MCAT, I'd be like, this doesn't feel. It didn't feel right. And I've learned over the years if something doesn't feel right, I shouldn't pursue it. It's not gonna end
yeah,
well for me. So there was always something holding me back, and I didn't understand it. It was my only plan. I'd done pre-med throughout university. I'm like, well, what am I going to do if I don't do that? But I'm like, I can't do it if it doesn't feel right. So it really was this, yeah, this wise part of me being like, don't do it. That won't be good. Um, so I'm very grateful I didn't. Even to this day, I'm like, well, that wouldn't have been that wouldn't have been good for me. But becoming a dietitian was in a way kind of like the default. Like it there were other things I kind of wanted to do. I loved the idea of becoming a psychologist. That was probably the main thing I was considering at that point, but I would have to redo my entire undergrad basically, and I'm like, I just can't
mhm,
do I can't redo all my courses. So I thought being a dietitian could be good because I'd worked with dietitians. I knew I didn't want to just put people on meal plans and do that, but I'm like, I can help people heal their relationship with food like I did. I was in a really good place at that point. Well, I was in a pretty good place. I'd gotten back from India. My behaviors were all stable. There was a lot of deeper healing work that I was still very focused on, but weight and eating were very like stable, not totally free, but very stable. Um, so I became a dietitian over those 3 years, and had done like those 3 years were also very focused on reading tons of self-help books and just really still meditating and doing lots of work. So I really was in a very good place when I started working with other people and their food, which can be a little bit fraught, with my own background and then helping other
yeah,
people with theirs. But it wasn't all eating disorders. A lot of it was very clinical and in the hospital. But I did have eating disorder clients, and I really loved working with them. But yeah, I won't go into just an awareness of like of our time with our conversation. But yeah, coaching, when I found out about it, it just felt like a better fit for what I really love doing, like the part of the dietetics work and the conversations I really loved having that I kind of got to do as a dietitian, but working in the public healthcare system, I kind of had to stay to the time
yeah. You've
constraints
got
and the yeah
That's the beauty of coaching, isn't it? That
yeah
you don't have to conform to certain
yeah
or remain in certain boxes, let me
Yeah,
say.
exactly. No, for sure. You have your guidelines and your scope of practice, and that's pretty broad, and you can really
Yeah,
do what feels right to you. Yeah, you don't have like a checklist of what you have to make sure you cover in a session.
exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So then you
Yeah.
can tailor it to each person's individual
Yeah,
needs.
exactly, exactly. Which I know lots of eating disorder dietitians are able to do, especially in their own private practices, but I just, yeah, this felt like the if I was going to do private practice, I just wanted to go that route. So that was a pretty seamless transition. That's been really lovely, and yeah, I love the work. Yeah, as I'm sure you do. Yeah.
Oh, honestly, it almost feels like I was waiting my whole life to do this.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yes. And it's
So,
neat seeing people who are recovering also be like, "Oh, wait, I could do that too." Like, "Yeah, but you absolutely
yes.
could."
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, that's amazing.
Mhm. Totally.
What does full recovery mean to you today?
I think just not having my life run by fear and run by that kind of however subconscious sense of not being enough. And so just feeling so terrible when I'm not doing certain things or abiding by certain things. And yeah, so it's, I guess, just the freedom of feeling good enough and letting go of all these things I have to do and have to be meeting on the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess knowing that your worth is inherent and it comes from within.
Yeah.
It's not to do
Yeah.
with anything external to you.
Right. Exactly. And having that, like, the feeling of that. Because I think, you can always hear, like, people always say that to you. So you, like, on some way, I think you know it up here, even when you're struggling, but you don't
Yeah,
live it. Like, it doesn't feel true. So you can't, like, rest in that sense yet. And that takes
yeah,
time to develop. But I think, yeah, both of our stories show that it can be developed. Like, I think you're right. I think it's there when we're born. Like, I think it really is inherent, and it gets covered up by all these fears and these
yes,
beliefs that we take on from our life experiences, and how those life experiences combine with our, biology and psychology. And so really it's, yeah, really like an undoing of all those like fear-based beliefs that we've taken on, I think. Yeah.
I heard a beautiful analogy. I can't remember who said it, but it's like in childhood, when we're really young,
Mm-hmm.
we see clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we start going through life, we put on glasses
Mm-hmm.
and we look through different lenses.
Mm-hmm.
And with
Yes.
each stage of life, we're putting on more and more and more glasses on top of the old ones.
Yes. Yes.
And so we're
Yeah,
looking
that's a good
through
analogy.
these thicker lenses all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
And recovery is just starting to take them
Starting to
off
take them up. Yeah. 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 That's a good analogy. And
so
it's
that you
so
can
hard
see
because
clearly.
you don't always realize what you are looking through. But
Yeah,
and maybe that's why meditation and the self-help books played such a big role for me, because I almost feel like whenever I'm going through my day just on autopilot with all my usual thoughts and focuses and worries, which is like looking through those lenses, and you don't realize you are kind of like a fish in a fishbowl, like you don't know what you're swimming in, kind of. But then somehow something about reading those books, and it's like it takes them off for a second, and you're like, oh wait, like hold on, I have like all this stuff clouding
yeah.
my vision. So how do I take those off permanently because they keep coming back on? Um,
It
yeah.
allows you
Hmm.
to realize there's a different perspective, a different way
Yeah.
of viewing things.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
One of the first or most profound books I read,
Hmm.
and I've read it probably about 4 times now,
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Yeah, I know. I did read that and I did love it. For some it's spoken to so many people more than I like to Surrender Experiment one more. For some reason that one spoke to me more, but I that one is beautiful. The concept of it, I think I've sought through other writings. But yes, it's
Yeah.
a beautiful concept. It's yeah,
So
yeah.
just before we wrap up,
Mhm.
I've got two more questions.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if you could go back and speak to your 12-year-old self, what would you tell
Yeah.
her?
I know. I've thought of this question before and I've been asked it before. And the one thing that comes to me, gosh, more than anything she needed to hear, she needed someone to go to. I think she just couldn't do it on her own. I don't know if there's, honestly, I don't know if there's anything I could have said to, I mean, I guess I would reassure her that it does get better and that that she is okay and things will be okay, because I think she needed to hear that. But I think honestly, in order to not develop the eating disorder, I don't think those messages would have been enough. I think she needed someone to turn to, and I wish she'd had that, like a safe person. I was really alone with all my feelings and all my thoughts, and I just didn't have anyone I could go to with them to reassure me and help me navigate without turning to the eating disorders. So I wish she'd had like a safe emotional connection with someone, like an adult who she could have turned to. But without that, then just letting her know that it was going to be a tumultuous time ahead of her, but that it would be okay and she would have a happy ending, or at least happy 30s and 40s. I can't predict the future, but get better. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
And if you could give one piece of advice to somebody who's thinking about recovery,
Mhm.
what would you say?
I feel like maybe two things come to. I would for sure tell them that, like, what is gonna help them recover is inside of them. Like, it's their own true self that will come forward and will help them heal. And that also, that they can't do it alone, or they shouldn't try to do it alone. Like, how much those loving, stable people around them who believe in them and see the true them and really help them along is so important. So I think
I
it's both, isn't it? Yeah, it's both.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
Because although, yes, you can make yourself eat and rest.
Mhm.
It's hard.
Mhm.
It's
It's
really hard.
hard
You
on your
can.
own. Yeah.
But seeing things from a different perspective,
Mhm. Mhm.
if nobody's pointing out that there is a different perspective,
Mhm. Exactly.
you can't
Exactly.
you can't see it because you only know
Yeah.
what you know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think so many, especially with eating disorders, we do want to be very self-reliant and very like independent and strong. But I always point out to people, like, just to help reframe it a bit, is that um, I didn't study anthropology or anything, so I don't know this absolutely for a fact. But from what I know, like, I just see that, like, even in ancient times, from as long as we always went to elders for things, whether it was like a grandmother or even an aunt or like a wise man or a shaman. Like, there've always been wise people there who people turn to when they're struggling and in a dark period of
Yes.
their life. So I don't think it's this new agey thing or this new obsession with everyone having a therapist. Like, no, this is very inherent to us being social creatures, is that we turn
Yeah,
to
we
otherwise
need
people.
connection.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
And if you think about how much pleasure and fulfillment it gives you to help somebody,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
most people feel like that. Most people love to help people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It feels like an
So,
honor for someone to seek
yes.
that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you ask for help,
Hmm.
and you allow somebody else to step in and help you, not
Hmm.
only are you giving yourself a gift, but you're also giving the person who's helping you a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, thanks. I know we went in lots of directions, so hopefully that was,
I d
but
We could talk for a very
yeah,
long time,
there's
but,
so many aspects to it. Yeah, but no, it was a
yeah.
lovely, lovely speaking.
How can people reach you if they would like to chat with you?
I attempted to push myself to do social media, and it's really not my thing, so I don't even bother putting that out there anymore. I am not active on there, but but my website is just the best way to read about what I offer. I also have a few other coaches who work with me now, and that's how you can yeah, read about my
Brilliant.
story a bit more, what we do, and to get in touch there if you want any
Okay,
support.
so I'll put the links for that in the
Hmm.
show notes.
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
It's been
Okay.
absolutely wonderful talking
Oh,
to you. Thank you
thank you,
so much for being an
Julia.
amazing guest.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And listeners, thank you for always being here and
Mhm,
coming back every week.
mhm.
And I will be back next week. Lots of love.